guys, it's Ty and welcome back to my channel. Well, it's time to do another recent reads. I almost forgot to do this because I have been so caught up in doing all of my end of the year stuff that I had a whole pile of books that has just been getting taller and taller with books that I needed to talk about. And I'm not gonna do the usual lowest rated to highest rated. I'm just gonna start with the one that was farthest back that I need to talk about to all the way up to my most recent book that I finished. So we are just gonna go ahead and get started. So the first one up is A History of Wild Places by Shay Earnshaw. And this is a adult mystery magical realism novel. And this one follows our main character. Well, okay, first it starts off and it follows a character by the name of Travis, and he is kind of like a private detective, but not really. And he has this like ability to where he can touch things and see the past of that particular thing that he touched. And so he is tasked with trying to locate this missing author that has been missing, I believe, at the start of the story for like 5 years. And she is an author of this popular children's series. The children's series is kind of weird within itself because it's about this magical place, and kids who read this series that this author wrote, I think the name of the author is Maggie. So the author Maggie, she wrote this series, and the children who read the series, they try to go and find this place that she was writing about, and I believe at least one child has died trying to locate this place. So anyways, this author has gone missing, and Travis has been tasked with trying to locate her. And so we're following him in the very beginning, trying to figure out where she went, and he feels like he may have located her. And then it kind of drops off with him finding this place called Pastoral where she might be. Then we follow another set of characters, and these people, their name is Theo, his wife Calla, and her sister B live in the town of Pastoral. And in this town, no one is allowed to leave, and it's set in these like backwoods, and if you leave or go past the border, you are infected with like this sickness that I think they call the rot, and it infects you from the inside out. Not only will it infect the person who has crossed the border, but it also will infect the trees, and it's this whole big thing. We find out that Theo has been going across the border, but he hasn't been getting sick, and he has been going across the border for a year, and he has been marking his path with like a rock. So every time he goes a little bit further out, he puts another rock. And so he's been doing that for the past year, and he hasn't been getting sick, and he's trying to figure out why and if he's immune to whatever this sickness is. And so throughout this story, we are trying to figure out, you know, what this sickness is. Are certain people really immune? And then we learn their ways of how they like, if people are sick, how they quote unquote cure people of the rot. And so then Theo and Calla, his wife, start to find pieces of this missing person by the name of Maggie. And so then we're going back to the mystery of this author. And so this whole story is like a whirlwind of what the heck is this town, Pastoral, and what the heck happened to Maggie. And this book was just a vibe. That's all that I can say that this was. It's just a vibe. To be fair, I almost DNF'd this because in the beginning, I didn't know what was happening. It took me a little while to get into the story. I thought it was a little boring, but once I got past that little hump in the story, I was all here for this vibe, trying to figure out what this sickness was, what the heck happened to Maggie, because at a certain point I forgot we was even looking for the girl. And I was here for it. I was here for the twist at the end. I ended up really enjoying this one, and I rated this one a 4 stars. I would highly recommend this book. It was perfect for this time of year. Well, when I read it, it was back in November. So it was perfect for the time in November. And I just really enjoyed it. Like I said, it was just a vibe. So I enjoyed it. So the next one we have is White Horse by Erica T. Worth. And this one is a adult mystery horror novel. And this one follows our main character by the name of Carrie. She's an Indigenous woman. She's in her 30s. She works at a bar. She works at several bars, I think, but the main one that she works at is called the White Horse. And she is approached by her cousin, Debbie. Debbie lets her know that she found Carrie's mother's bracelet. And when she found the bracelet, like, it kind of like did something to her. It had like this magic power, basically. And when she gives Carrie the bracelet, Debbie tells her that she really needs to look into what happened to her mother. Because when Carrie was, I think, around like 2 years old, Carrie's mother, Cecilia, ended up disappearing, and everyone presumed that she's dead. And when Carrie gets this bracelet, she starts to have these visions and nightmares of her mother. And she ends up investigating what exactly happened to her mother. We start to learn that something, in fact, did happen to her mother. We start to learn that her mother was involved in a lot of protests, and Carrie thinks that maybe that could have something to do with her mother's disappearance. She is then reunited with her grandparents, who she was never close to before. And so because of that, she starts to get even more background into her mother. And so that's basically where the story takes off. So I ended up giving this one a 3 stars. In the beginning, I did like the horror element. It was very creepy. It was very unsettling. But after a while, I just felt like it got kind of repetitive. We were getting the same sort of creepy moments. So that kind of took away from the horror elements. I did like the talk around the Indian culture that we got, because like I said, Carrie was an Indigenous woman. It was talking a lot about her background. So I liked that aspect of the story. I also did sort of like the aspect around the mystery and trying to figure out what happened to her mother. But there was a part of the story towards the end that got really confusing when like the like climax of the story happened, where I had to at a certain point like go back and reread a little bit because it was too much that was happening, and I was trying to figure out what just happened. Were we just transported somewhere else? Because too much happened at one time and I got very confused, and I just did not like that part. So that I didn't like. I thought it was trying to do too much with a certain element of this story. I thought also too, her cousin Debbie and her relationship with her husband was, I don't understand why that was needed a lot, because Debbie was in an abusive relationship with her husband, at least verbally, from what we could tell in this story. And I'm not sure why that was talked about so much in this story. Don't really know why that was brought up so much. So I didn't really like that. But overall, I mean, the story was fine. It was interesting. The mystery was okay, but definitely nothing that I thought left a lasting impression on me. So like I said, I gave it a 3 stars. So then next up, I read The Santa Suit by Mary Kay Andrews. And this one follows our main character by the name of Ivy. She is, I think, recently divorced. Yes, she is recently divorced, and she just bought a farmhouse in this small town. And so when she gets there, she realizes that this farmhouse that she just bought needs a lot of work, and she ends up getting close to the realtor that sold her the house, and the realtor's name is Ezra. And so we follow Ivy as she is getting this farmhouse ready to actually live in. She is starting to form this sort of friendship / relationship with Ezra, the realtor. And in this farmhouse, she comes across a Santa suit that was left by the previous owners. And in the pocket of the Santa suit, she finds a letter. And in the letter, this little girl has written a note to Santa asking that Santa brings home her father for Christmas. So she has taken it upon herself to find out who this little girl was. So Ivy goes around the town to try to figure out if any of the people in the town knew who the little girl was. And so this is how Ivy starts to become familiar with the people in the town. We're just following Ivy as she is making new friends, helping out people in the town, developing feelings for Ezra, the realtor. I thought it was cute. I thought it was the perfect read for the month of December, and it was just a fun time. I just wish that it had more of the romance that I was looking for, because that was basically why I wanted to pick this up. I thought that I would have felt a little bit more chemistry between Ivy and Ezra, but I did like every other part of this book. I love the relationships that Ivy built with some of the people in the community, especially between her and Phoebe, one of her new friends that she met, because Phoebe had a lot going on, and I loved Phoebe and the issues that she had going on. So I did think this was a fun time. I ended up giving this one in the 3 stars. I wish this had more of the romance that I was looking for when I was going into it. So next up, we have Killers of a Certain Age by Deanna Raybourn. And this one is a adult mystery thriller. I actually listened to this one on audio, but this one follows 4 retired assassin women, and they are newly retired. They are going on their retirement cruise. They are supposed to be on a vacation, and while they are on a vacation on this cruise, they find out that someone that they used to work with is on their cruise, and they realize really quickly that this person is there to kill them. And so they figured that out, and once they kill this person that is there to kill them, they find out that they have to go rogue and figure out why they have been targeted. And so we follow these 4 retired assassins while they are trying to figure out who is out to kill them and why. I rated this one a 3 stars. This sounds like something that I would have loved, but I just thought it was fine. So we have Billy, Mary Alice, Helen, and Natalie, and it's primarily told from Billy's perspective, and you can tell right from the beginning that Billy is the leader of the group. And I liked when all 4 women are together. We're getting the banter from the 4 women. I liked when we're getting the action scenes and they are kicking butt. I thought all of that was fun. I just wish that we could have gotten background into all of the characters. I feel we really knew a lot about Billy, but we didn't know a lot about the other characters. There was one character that I notated specifically that I hardly knew anything about, and that was Natalie. And I just wish that we just got the same amount of information that we got about Billy, about all of them, because I think all of the characters were interesting. I just wish I knew about all of them. We also got this story told in flashback scenes. So in the present time, they are trying to figure out who is after them and why. And then in the flashback scenes, we are getting the story of how they became assassins. And I really like the flashback scenes, but again, it's basically focused on Billy, and I wish we could have gotten it focused on all of them. I just think it would have made for a really interesting story. Not only that, I feel when it wasn't focused on them, either all 4 together or they weren't fighting, the story was kind of boring. It's not a long story, but we're just inside of Billy's head, and it was kind of boring. So I just ended up rating this one a 3 stars. I just thought overall the story was just okay. So next up, we have The Rose and the Thorn by Michael J. Sullivan, and this is the 2nd book in the Rhaeria Chronicles series, and this is an adult fantasy. Now, I did not ever talk about this in my recent reads. I have been talking about this because This is part of one of the backlist series that I have been trying to read this year, and I have saved this for like my TBR videos and my wrap-up videos, but I don't think that I'm going to be doing those anymore, so I'm going to talk about this one here. But I will leave the last time I talked about like the first book in this series link down below in case you guys are interested. But I'm not going to be doing those videos anymore just because I don't think TBRs are working out for me. That is going to be a discussion for a different video that I'm going to have here pretty soon. But this series, the Rhaeria Chronicles, is a prequel series to the Rhaeria Revelations, which I've already read. I read that a couple of years ago, which I absolutely loved. So I wanted to go back and read the prequel series. So this is the second book. But this one follows the main characters from that first series, Hadrian and Royce. And we are just getting the background information, basically, of how these two came together and how they got to working together. And so in this one, they are back in Medford, and they went to go visit their good friend Gwen. Notice that she has been brutally beaten up, and they need to figure out why. And this has infuriated Royce, who doesn't really show a lot of emotion, but this really pissed him off. And so he is trying to seek revenge. They are trying to figure out what the heck happened to her. While in the kingdom of Medford, there is some other political scheming going on. And so we're also following that. And so in this one, there is a lot of political intrigue, which is one of my favorite things in fantasy. So I really enjoyed this. And as usual, I really enjoy anything that has to do with Hadrian and Royce. So I gave this one a 4 stars, and I cannot wait to go on with this series. Again, I will have the video linked below for the first book that I talked about if you guys are interested. If you are interested in fantasy but you have not read anything by Michael J. Sullivan, I would highly recommend his books. They're easy to get into. I would definitely recommend his books if you are looking to get into fantasy, because they are really easily digestible. I know a lot of people are like, oh, you should start with Mistborn. I say you should start with Michael J. Sullivan. So then next up we have This Time Next Year by Sophie Cousins. And this is a adult holiday romance. This one, we follow our two main characters. We have Minnie and Quinn. And both of these characters were actually born on New Year's Day. And so at the beginning of this book, both of these characters are in separate relationships, but they meet on New Year's Day in, I think it's 2020? Yes, 2020. And so from there, we kind of are just following them as they are forming like this friendship. But we learn that Minnie thinks that she is cursed because every year on New Year's Eve, she thinks that something bad is always going to happen to her. Well, she thinks bad things happen to her on the eve of her birthday, and she got this idea because of her mother. So when she was born, her mother and Quinn's mother was at the hospital at the same time, and there was this competition going on that whoever had their baby first on New Year's Day got this lump sum of money. And Minnie's mother had told Quinn's mother that she had planned to name Minnie Quinn. But Quinn's mother had Quinn first, won the money, and named Quinn Quinn, and took the name. So because of that, Minnie's mother had instilled in her that she was unlucky because they lost the money and Quinn's mother took the name. So Minnie has always lived with this thought that she was just unlucky because she didn't get the name she was supposed to have, and they never got all the money they were supposed to get. So every year, she has always just thought that she was unlucky, and bad things have always seemed to happen. So this book flips back and forth between different years over the course of the story. So we'll jump back between like 2013, 2015, 2017, between both of the characters. And then we'll flip back to the present of them forming this sort of friendship / relationship. I really enjoyed this story. I ended up giving this one a 5 stars. I loved the relationship between Minnie and Quinn. I loved like this slow burn sort of romance between them because it's basically the friends to lovers trope. I love how both of them have these issues with their mothers that stem from the time that they were born. You know, we have Minnie's mom who has just instilled in her that she is just like this unlucky person because her mother just has this grudge against Quinn's mother because she feels like his mother has taken something from her. And then Minnie has always thought that Quinn and his mother was just so well off, but Quinn and his mother has also gone through some very traumatic things that you learn throughout the course of this book and through his flashback scenes, which is very traumatic. And so this book deals with like severe anxiety and the talk of going through therapy and how important that is, and talking through your issues and acknowledging that you even have issues to talk through. This book also focuses really heavily on friendship because Minnie has a really good friend by the name of Layla. I think her name is Layla. And they've been best friends since I think they were like 15 years old. And Layla has just really put up with Minnie and all of her superstitions around her birthday and just not wanting to go out and just being there for her. And they have this business that they have started up together, this like catering business that has seen like a lot of ups and downs, and how that not only affects Minnie, but how that has affected Layla and her relationships and her finances and all of that. I just really enjoyed this way more than I thought I was going to, but I just thought this was a really, really, really cute book, and I thought it was a fun time. And I think you guys should really check this one out. It was a fun time. So then the last one that I have to talk about is The Weight of Blood by Tiffany D. Jackson. I will call this a young adult horror novel. So this one is a straight retelling of Stephen King's Carrie. And so this one follows our main character by the name of Maddie. And she is a high school senior. This takes place in 2014. Well, it primarily takes place in 2014. And she is trying to pass as a white student. And she is technically mixed, but she is trying to pass off as white. And that is through the direction of her father. Her father wants her to make everyone think that she is white and not black. And so at school, you know, she has to wear her hair straight. She has to put on a lot of tanning lotion so she doesn't get dark. And it's just crazy the things that her father makes her do to make sure that no one knows that she's black. And so one day in gym class, they have to run outside. It rains, her hair gets wet, it gets frizzy, it kind of turns into like that afro. And that's when everyone at the school realizes that she's actually half black. And then the story kind of takes off from there, where the students realizes that she's black. The thing about this story though is that the school is kind of segregated for it to be 2014. And so at this school, majority of the students are white. And for their proms, they have a white prom and a black prom. And so once everyone figures out that Maddie is black, there's an uproar at the school. A lot of people are making fun of her. There's a lot of division about how people feel about her being black. There's a lot of division within the black students because they feel a certain way about her hiding her blackness. Of course, the white students feel a certain way about her trying to act like she's white. And it all hell breaks loose with it being found out that she is black. And then of course, in true Carrie fashion, some things happen at prom. It's revealed that Maddie might have some powers, and things take place at the prom. It flips back and forth between interview style podcast format, where this person is trying to investigate exactly what happened at the night of prom, because no one has seen Maddie since prom, and they don't know if she actually died with a whole bunch of students and people in the town that died that night because of the quote unquote powers that people claim Maddie had. They are just trying to figure out what exactly happened based off of interviews and articles that came out and that sort of thing. So I ended up giving this one a 3 stars. I like the conversation around like the race, around how, you know, people felt about Maddie, it being revealed that Maddie was Black. And I liked how there was like the conversation even within the Black community about how they felt about her posing as a white student. So, I mean, I liked that, but I just wish it just wasn't so, it just was too much like Carrie for me. It was straight up Carrie with racism. That's just how it felt. I mean, I like what Tiffany D. Jackson was trying to do, but I wish she really would have remixed the whole Carrie story a little bit more than what she did. I didn't like some of the characters. Maddie's guy that she ended up going to prom with, like once he started to get to know Maddie a little bit more, I think his name was like Kenny, he was annoying. He had one conversation with this girl and all of a sudden he was ready to like change his whole life and marry her and have kids with her. He was so in love with her. And I was like, that's dumb. That's so not realistic. You had one conversation with this girl, and this is unrealistic because this was a character who was it almost seemed like he was ashamed of his own Blackness. So now that she is revealed to be Black, you're okay with now being seen with a Black girl because he had a white girlfriend. So now you're okay with being seen with a Black girl? Or is it you're okay with being seen with a Black girl because she looks white? So like, what is it? He was annoying. He was straight up annoying. I did not like him at all. And then at the end of this story, there was like a little excerpt from like this podcast interviewer person where they kind of like tried to recap their whole segment, I guess you would call it, where they talked about the whole racism thing again. And it's like, we get it. The whole story was about racism. You don't have to tell us that again. We got it. It's clear that that's what this story was about. You don't have to tell us that again. So I mean, this was fine. This was my second book that I've read by Tiffany D. Jackson, and it was definitely a step up from Grown because I did not like that story. I thought this one was fine. I would pick up something else by her, but this just did not do it for me like everyone said that it would, but it was okay. So that is all that I have for you guys, and I will see you guys next time. Bye.